All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling through the marketplace, interviewing the top professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, what really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and future titan for episode 286 from Newport, Rhode Island, none other than Zachary Beach. Zachary, it's an honor and a pleasure, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time today.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Gregory, I'm excited to be on here. Appreciate you having me.
This is great. And again, you have such an incredible dynamic story, what got you to the business and everything that you do to the highest of levels, Zachary. So I can't really wait to peel back the layers of the onion of your story and what brought you up to today. So I guess without further ado, let's dive into the first question, which everybody really wants to know, kind of the person behind the business or the person behind the greatness. So let's talk about your origin story. Who are you? Where you come from, what got you into the business, and what led you up to today? Kind of your origin story. Let's go there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, Zachary Beach, I'm actually from Central Massachusetts, right outside of Worcester.
Love it.
For those of you that are not from Massachusetts, it is definitely not spelt the way it's said. Yeah, I grew up. I always like to tell people I grew up. I was a poor kid, grew up in a rich town, so I had a chip on my shoulder for majority of my life, and a lot of things that I did at a younger age were just in spite of what other people thought I was going to be able to accomplish. So when I graduated from high school and I went off to college, I really just went there because my teachers told me I couldn't. So I did what every marketing MBA student would have. What I did was then went ahead and became a bartender, which makes a ton of sense, right?
There you go. That's the normal line, right? When you talk about it, Zachary, keep going.
So you just go get a marketing degree and then you go become a bartender. So the reality was I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went and bartended, and then eventually I picked up some additional gigs. I'd bartender on the day or at night, and then I'd personal train early in the morning, and then I was in some direct selling marketing companies as well, like selling nutritional supplements. So I was just doing everything I possibly could, and eventually I got super burnt out. Me and my wife were having a conversation at 4 a.m. like we would, casual conversation when we get out of bartending.
Sure.
And we just said there's going to be a better route. So I actually approached my father-in-law, Chris, who was in real estate for probably 23 years at that point in time. And I know he just got crushed in 2008 and was rebuilding his business. So right around 2014 is when I joined him along with my brother-in-law, Nick, and, kind of hit the ground running from there.
Now, Zachary, as you mentioned that, and big shout out to Chris Prefontaine. We've had Chris on the show. He's an incredible mind in and of itself. And again, I think that we are guilty by association. And the fact that you all are aligned together speaks volumes. Obviously, everybody bringing to the value to that table and what the business does and the expertise. So I have to give Chris a big shout out. But what was it like for you at that point? I mean, reaching out and kind of saying, hey, that 4 a.m. kind of conversation. And there's been so many people into this life, into this world that have had those types of, is now the time? What can I do? Where do I go? So what were you thinking at that time? Why were you thinking real estate? Is it just the direct correlation in relationship? Was there any inspiration behind it? Like, where was your head at that time of your life?
Honestly, I didn't know if I was going to like real estate. It wasn't like I grew up being like, I want to be this real estate entrepreneur. Right. I just saw an opportunity where I could add some value and knew that, Chris and Nick at the time were, creating this new business. And, I always wanted to be involved in entrepreneurship in general. I used to sell golf balls when I was in like second and third grade. I used to walk into the tall grass, grab golf balls and sell them for $4. I realized how much of a discount I was giving people at that time. If you go golfing at all, 3 golf balls is like $20, not $8. So, so I just knew I wanted to get involved in entrepreneurship, saw an opportunity, and joined it. It still took me 6 months to get my first deal done.
Okay.
I just knew right around that time frame that I had to burn the ship. So I actually stopped bartending. I stopped taking personal training clients. Stopped doing direct marketing.
Mhm.
and just put everything I had into real estate investing. And I'm glad I did, because we're sitting here 10 years later.
Unbelievable. And again, I love the fact that you're mentioning your thought process. And nobody really looks at it and say, hey, someday that's where I'm going to be and I'm going to do that. At a young age, you just don't necessarily think real estate, right? You think, hey, I'm going to be a baseball player, or, I'm going to be an astronaut, or a firefighter. It's never necessarily that road. But the most incredible business entrepreneurs, they find themselves down that road into real estate. But you're a very unique situation into that, because when people think real estate, they might think residential or commercial, and they might think a licensed realtor.
Mm.
You're into investing and creative financing and really doing this at a high level.
Yeah.
You've done this for such a long time, and again, aligned with an organization as well that is just absolutely dominating the space. So, I mean, this is just from the last stat sheet that I saw here, but over 600 creative financing deals all over the United States. I mean, you're teaching countless professionals on how to do and succeed the way that you have. So, what was it like on those early stages of your career, and then kind of leading up to today? Because 10 years is quite a span.
Oh, it certainly has been quite a span. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I've lived multiple lives. I lived my first life up until I was, in my early 20s, and I lived my second life over the past 10 years. It's certainly been a journey, and certainly has not been easy in any form or fashion. So if anybody ever tells you that buying and selling real estate is easy, or being an entrepreneur is easy, then they're lying. They probably are not doing either one of those.
Bless.
Um, the first deals were tough. I mean,
Mhm.
and I always like to tell, especially people that are aspiring to be real estate investors, look, I had somebody in my office that was a broker owner, a realtor, fix and flip. Like, Chris was doing all that stuff for 23 years by the time I joined.
Mhm.
And then Nick, my brother-in-law, was a licensed agent for 8 years, and it still took me 6 months to get my first deal done.
Wow.
Uh,
Mm.
so the reality is, it's such a growing process, right?
Mhm.
I've learned quite often now that entrepreneurship or real estate investing is more of a spiritual journey than anything else,
Mm.
because you have
Wow.
to evolve drastically in order to get different results, especially constantly working on yourself development wise. So
Mhm.
the first couple of years were certainly challenging, although
Mhm.
I started to pick up the pace and get a heck of a lot of deals done. They
Wow.
certainly were challenging as I was evolving, going from zero real estate experience to the first deal, to then like the first 10 deals, and then it kept transpiring from there.
Wow.
But there's a lot to learn and a lot to grow. And on top of that, my first real estate deal had a lot of hiccups,
Okay.
because we buy real estate creatively.
Mhm.
And when we went and purchased this property, we ended up realizing that the property had not been de-leaded. Now, what that
Oh.
simply means, like, if you're not used to that, up here in the Northeast, there's a lot of properties that were built,
Mhm.
in the early 1800s, early 1900s, and
Yeah.
a lot of them use lead paint, so
Mm.
they need to be de-leaded,
Mm.
which simply means that you got to scrape out all the lead paint, and then go ahead and paint it with new age paint. So we
Right.
discovered that it wasn't after we already placed what we consider tenant buyers in the houses, which are people that need time in order to qualify for loans. That's how we exit a majority of our deals.
Wow.
So that ended up being a $30,000 lead job. So
Mm.
if you're ever coming across a challenge when you're entering into a new business,
Mm.
it's what's supposed to happen, right? So
Mhm.
imagine this. I join a family business. Then it
Yep.
takes me 6 months to get my first deal done. Then the first deal that we get done that ends up having a bunch of challenges, $30,000 worth of
Oh.
challenges. So
Mm.
as you can imagine, there's a lot of pressure on me at that time, but we were able
Yeah.
to really evolve and then take all of that learning lessons and continue to compile into our next deals. And
Mm.
then things really started picking up after that deal.
That's incredible, though, and you mentioned that, Zachary, and I love the pressure sort of scenario, and even under the best of case of circumstances, having direct education and lineage through your partnerships and exponential amount of knowledge, still you taking the time that you needed to really make that happen. But life happens, challenges happen, pressure, no diamonds, as they say, into that
Sure.
situation, and you've really formulated into that, which is incredible to me. But you base it off of telling an even deeper story for anybody out there who's tuning into this, whether it's with us now or after the fact down the road. It's interesting to base that anything is possible, right? I mean, and nothing's handed, right? It's
Mhm.
all earned. and continually earned, right? Rent is due monthly, right? Your mortgage, right? So the same principle that applies. Every deal is going on to the next one. So doing hundreds of these things, Zachary, what are your takeaways? What are your thoughts? You know, when you talk about creative financing, there's so many real estate professionals that are tuning into this, and it's interesting. They talk about how important investing in real estate is, but as a licensed real estate professional, very few of them actually invest. So
Sure.
I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on creative finance, kind of takeaways or thoughts into, you know, what you see out there, and maybe somebody who's wanting to get started or somebody who's already in it, but maybe can improve. Anything along those lines.
Yeah, I think creative financing, I mean, I luckily stumbled into it, right? Most people's real estate path, or what most people are taught, is that you're going to enter into one of two ways. Or maybe I'll give you three ways.
Yeah.
You're either gonna be an agent, right? To learn the business, understand the laws, be on the selling side, start producing income, and then use that income to invest in real estate, right? That's one path. The
Yeah.
next path is a wholesaler, right? You get into these deals, you buy them low, you sell them to somebody else that's actually the real estate investor, or you get involved through fix and flipping. So you go in and you raise a little bit of private money, or you go use your own money and you go ahead and get hard money, which is, you know, just short-term money that you're paying high interest on, and then you fix and flip your property.
Wow.
Luckily, I stumbled into creative financing because nowadays there's some popularity behind it, for good reason.
Yep.
Interest rates are really high right now, making a lot of properties either unable to sell or unable to cash flow. And then you have a significant amount of people out there that can't qualify for bank loans right now, so they're looking for alternative processes like rent to own. So luckily, I stumbled into it because I probably would have never been able to get involved in real estate investing. I grew up with a single mother. I didn't have a ton of cash. I also was a bartender. So although I might have had a lot of cash on me, it wasn't of significant amounts when it comes to the bank account. So I would have never been able to get in there. So I honestly believe creative financing really gives the average everyday person the ability to, by having knowledge and skill sets, to be able to access real estate for long-term generational wealth.
Wow.
Because before, if you were going to invest traditionally, you have to have anywhere from 10 to 20% down, especially for an investment property. Most people don't have access to that. Right. It's like a majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Well said.
So, and when we look at creative financing, I can step in and buy a piece of real estate for little money down or no money down. So now I can get into and control an asset or own an asset with little to no money down by having a skill set of acquiring these and having the knowledge to be able to do so, right? Putting that knowledge into action. So at the end of the day, when I look at creative financing, it's more of the skill set than it is the access to resources, which most of us don't have when we first start our business.
Sure.
Then as you grow and scale your business, now you have the skill set and the resources. Well, now you should be able to become unstoppable at that point in time, because now you can do any deal that really comes across your desk, when especially if you can solve that particular seller's challenge, right? So when I talk about creative financing, I'm really talking about getting into deals with no money, little to no money down, especially low down payments in comparison to the traditional market. I'm talking about not going to get bank loans or personally guaranteeing debt. So either using the seller as being your financer, your bank, or using the current debt on the property and keeping that in place. So now you can get into absolutely any deal necessary. So anybody out here now listening that has the dream of getting involved in real estate, we're not talking about having access to capital as now being the first challenge. It's actually increasing your knowledge and then your skill sets to be able to get involved in real estate, because this is a people business. We're just solving people problems and then gaining access to properties. Now having that skill set 10 years later, it's really helped me build upon every other aspect of real estate investing, because now it's like the foundation and that's my belief. Creative financing should be the foundation of your real estate investment portfolio. And then if you have to go get a bank loan, then go get a bank loan, if that's what you still choose to do. My business partner to this day won't do it, but you may be open to it, right?
Sure.
Or if you want to do a wholesale deal, sure, if the numbers don't work for creative finance, you could do that too. Or if you decide you want to start fixing and flipping properties or getting involved in multifamilies, but having the skill set of creative financing being the foundation can certainly grow and scale your portfolio a lot more quickly, because now there's typically not a challenge you can't solve. So that's looking back 10 years, that's probably the biggest aha I've had in probably maybe the last 90 days.
Oh man, but Zachary, as you mentioned that, there's so much to take away in the thought process, and a few things that jump out at me. Being empowered to know how and when and with who, I think is important. It's the knowledge, but it's executed knowledge. So for the individuals that are tuning into this, I mean, the heavy level of encouragement is to get in front of or align yourself with somebody who's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and really to reverse engineer what makes sense for you, for your goals, for your life, as the generational wealth had you stated earlier. So what does that look like for essentially all the students, right? I mean, if somebody's tuning in, it's like, okay, I love this guy's story, the way he's talking about it and delivering, and there's so many different ways to get involved. But how do they connect with you? What does it look like if somebody was like, I want to know more, I really want to hone in on those skills, maybe align myself with somebody who knows exactly what this looks like?
Sure.
How do they go about doing that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think you bring up a solid point. Then I'll talk about where people can find us. And that is,
Yeah.
most people don't necessarily take action because of lack of knowledge. It's because they have typically a fear of failure, right? So
Wow.
that's where the support comes into play, right? At the end of the day, if I have the ability to go ask somebody that's been doing this and is still doing it, which is really important. Don't go find somebody that did it 10 years ago. The market has changed like 4 times since then.
Yes.
But the ability to go ask somebody a question for clarification or to brainstorm or to ensure that you're not missing something while you're working through a deal, that's where the gold is right there, because you can move forward faster without knowing everything. Because the knowledge, and I know too many people out there that take way too many courses, has shiny object syndrome, and I'm sure anybody listening to this can relate. Shiny object syndrome, but don't put any of it to work. And the majority of us don't put it to work because we don't believe that we can do it, or we're afraid of failing during the process.
Wow.
So having the support is the biggest component to be able to literally pick up the phone and ask somebody what the next step is. Yeah, there's a couple different ways in which people work with us.
Okay.
We have our Wicked Smart community, as it's known as, where we literally lock arms with them and do deals with them in the trenches. So you basically have a partner, quasi partnership. We help you put deals into your portfolio. That is certainly for those that are interested in building this business long term. Because what we tend to focus on is not necessarily just the skill set of buying real estate and investing. It's about actually creating the business around it and supporting it with the right mindset so that we continue to go from deal 1 to deal 10, deal 10 to deal 100, because there's a lot that's going to need to evolve personally and professionally throughout that process. So, but I know we're covering very surface level when we talk about creative financing. So I encourage you, right, like we talked about increasing your knowledge, go to wickedsmartbooks.com, wickedsmartbooks.com. Go grab your free, it's our first Amazon bestselling book. We'll actually ship it to you for free. It's going to give us your information. Go dive in. You'll see not only my story, but my other partner stories as well. And then we walk you through the fundamentals of creative financing, because in this day and age, you can make money in so many different real estate niches,
right?
And outside of real estate niches. So what's important is you dive into the niche and you find out, all right, is this something that I can be passionate about and that I can work on a daily basis outside of my W-2 job, right? If you're still working, or in addition to the current real estate niche that I'm in, because this is certainly not osmosis. It's going to take some time. So I would encourage you to dive into that book. And then if you want to pursue that further, then let's have a next level conversation, which will make sure you can have a free strategy call with that as well. And then see if it makes sense for us to support you along through your journey of building this real estate business.
I love that you mentioned that, Zachary. And again, wickedsmartbooks.com will have links in the show notes for that information. And again, to jump onto the book and really dive deep into this. I want to take it a little bit a step further. We're really getting to know you and the story and again, everything that's led you up to today. But I like to kind of put everybody in a time machine and go back a little bit. Now, you mentioned it earlier, kind of about the things that you wish you knew or the things that you were talking about kind of earlier on in your career. But if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self? I mean, what would you give as far as, hey, this is what really moved the needle for me, and
Yeah.
when it really took off? And again, I like this question because it's pertinent to everybody listening and tuning in today. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give?
I get asked this question a lot on podcasts, and it may not be the answer that you're hoping for.
Yeah, yeah.
I probably wouldn't go back and tell myself anything.
Okay.
Being full transparency,
Yeah.
I went through a lot of evolution over the past 10 years. And as I mentioned, I truly believe that this is more of a spiritual journey. And I want to consider myself a religious person. But what I mean is, like, my personal development has drastically changed from when I was, 24 years old
Sure.
to where I am today. And
Mhm.
a lot of the challenges that I faced may have been eliminated if I gave myself a couple of pieces of advice.
Mm,
But it certainly made me, into the person that I am today. And I
mm,
think I'm in the right place at the right time
mm,
with the right knowledge and the right skill sets in order to take myself to the next level.
mm.
Um, but but in order to be, sufficing this podcast, right?
Sure, 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 sure.
I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that each and every one of us can and should, if we're interested in building a real estate business, focus on
Mm.
is going to be communication. Like,
Wow.
if I just went back and just said, Zach, if you only focus on be a better communicator, you'll get
Mm.
more real estate deals, you'll move forward faster.
Wow.
That'd be the piece of advice. Because at the end of the day, this really is a people business.
Mhm.
We just happen to work in real estate as the asset that we buy and sell,
Wow.
but we are solving people problems.
Mm,
Well, and that could be whether you're buying a single family house from an elderly couple or a
mhm,
brand new, like, first time home buyer, right?
mhm,
All the way up to buying a property from a giant syndication. Each and every one of those has a goal in which they're trying to accomplish and some challenges in which they're facing. And if we can just find a way to create the right opportunity for whether the individual or the group of people to solve their problems and get them to their end goals, that's where the real estate deals come into play.
and I absolutely love the perspective of that answer. You wouldn't change anything first and foremost because you're the man you are today based off of everything that you've gone through. We don't have a time machine, so we can't do that anyhow. But it is interesting to kind of formulate the communication, as you mentioned, and
Yeah.
the importance of the relationships. And I would say that that transcends any business. As an entrepreneur, regardless, people drive the bus here. And I think understanding who they are and what their needs and wants and desires are, current and end result, I think we can better serve one another. And I think that that's a massive takeaway. Once again, it's not just for young Zach. This is for everybody tuning in, myself included, to say, hey, what are we doing with our communication? How are we really articulating our message? But I think more importantly, how are we listening to the others that we're communicating with?
Mm.
And really trying to identify how we can help and serve. I think that that's massive advice. And I don't care if you've been in the business for 30 plus years or you're starting out yesterday, right? I think that's important to take away. Um, any other thoughts, Zach? I mean, this has been an incredible kind of deep dive episode, kind of really understanding you and takeaways, but anything you want to close this out with?
I would just say, just in addition to the communication, right? Because that's the foundation, in my opinion, to all businesses, period, especially professionally and probably personally,
Mhm,
because the communication is what's going to drive your network. So, uh, like, if I spent more time networking and putting myself in the right rooms, especially with those that are that are significantly further along than where
mhm,
I was at the time,
mhm,
things could be a little bit further faster for sure. So if the younger version was listening to this, communicating exactly where you're trying to go
mhm,
with the people around you, and then making sure that you're putting yourself in the right rooms is going to drastically change. Because once I really started following that internal advice, that's when things drastically began to change for me,
mhm,
because it's the people that have the opportunities for you.
mhm,
And people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So if you're in that room, you're more likely to get the deal, the opportunity,
mhm.
than if you're outside that room. So just continue to do that. That'd be a big piece of advice.
Zach, that's huge for everybody to really take to heart. And the reason being is because I know proximity is thrown around quite a bit. Hey, you got to get into the right rooms. You know, it's important to align yourself with people that are further, faster down the road in knowledge base. Uh, I can't stress enough the importance of that. And I would echo that. There's been so many past Titans on the show here that have really emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with great individuals. The tough situation that so many people have in their minds, and I think this is a false barrier, is that I have to be that same person to be in that room. And unfortunately, that's just not true to my knowledge. You have to show a level of gratitude and understanding, and you have to earn your right into certain areas. But no one in that field is expecting you to know what they know. Everybody's been helped at some point in their life. And at the end of the day, they remember what it was like when they were in your shoes, trying to get into those rooms, and somebody gave them an opportunity. But you have to seize the moment. You have to be ready for those opportunities. You can't just hope, right? You need to learn and to grow and evolve, as you stated, through your time frame in this business so far. The Zach that was 10 years ago versus the Zach that is today, they're different versions, right? And that's a good thing. And same with myself included. And I will tell you, at least for me, the biggest evolutions into my life and in my career are solely based off of those individual relationships and opportunities that were seized with those relationships. But I had to show up, and I had to show that I was worth something to those individuals, just as you to the ones that go through. So I love this thought. And I think more people really need to dive into this topic because it's not really spoken enough. And it's just kind of surface level. Here's the apex. Here's the peak. Here's where I'm at. But again, it's the people. No one does it alone. I don't know if you agree into that note.
I completely agree. Each and every one of us has a certain value that we bring to the marketplace, to the mastermind, to the one-on-one relationship. It doesn't have to be the same amount of knowledge or accomplishment, especially if you're comparing yourself to somebody that's further ahead of you in a specific field, right? Or in a specific niche. Each and every one of us can bring value to that group, and it's understanding the value in which you can present. That's what gets you in the room. It's not, all right, if everyone in the room does 100 real estate deals and you're at deal 20, you may have a specific skill set, some knowledge, some value that could contribute to this group. You might not even be in real estate, but you can contribute to this group. How many real estate investors are trying to get better at marketing, get better at or trying to get better at with their CRM to get more efficient, or need attorney? Like, there's so many different things that we're looking for as real estate investors, or whoever that may be, whatever room you're looking to get involved in. Each and every one of us has that value. Now it's being able to communicate that value, number one, and being bold enough to step into that room, as you mentioned, because all of us have, certain, doubts, right? At the end of the day, imposter syndrome. But it's being able to step forward, in the face of fear, that will get you into those rooms for sure.
This is deep. Zach, I know you and I could chat all day, just even into this one section. This has been incredible stuff. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. I want to encourage everybody to connect with Zach, reach out, go to wickedsmartbooks.com, get the book, learn what you need to learn, reach out. If this connects with you in any form or fashion, this man is here and ready to help guide you through this process if it makes sense all the way through and through. So, Zach, I can't thank you enough, my friend. This has been a great conversation for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Gregory. I appreciate your time.
Love it. And everybody, thank you, as always, for your time and attention, your love and support. Here, if you like doing with Real Estate Titans, don't forget to like and subscribe. You do know what to do at this point, but I have to say it anyway. Our sponsor, I want to give a quick shout out, Lion Bolt Media. If you are in real estate and you're looking to grow and scale your business with leading edge digital marketing, visit lionboltmedia.com for more information. We're live here every Tuesday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. Catch everybody in the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.